Good day, dear students. We are going to start next topic, and that is Dalit literature, and it will be in two parts. The first part we have today. So, shall we move on to Dalit literature? Dalit literature is something that we have heard mentioned in the subaltern, and as such, you are familiar with the topic. But we need to know the history and the origin of Dalit literature in India. It starts with post colonial literatures in India. Among the post colonial literatures in India, we have one, protest literature of women, diasporic rewriting of colonial history, third, subaltern studies, and the fourth, Dalit writing. We have all these four types of writing which belong to the category post-colonial literatures in India. Dalit writing is related to the writings which are by the Afro-Americans in America and the rest of the world who started reacting, rest of the world who really have the marginalized people. So when they started writing, it is almost like the Dalit writing in India. So let's take the root of Dalit writing. Dalit in Sanskrit means the oppressed. The actual term is Dalita, which means the oppressed. Indian caste system, which we call as Chadurvarna, has 4 castes. You have already learned that in your high school classes, and you are familiar with the caste system and the different castes that come under Chadurvarna. The first is the Brahmin, second is the Kshatriya, third is Vaishya, and fourth Shudra. It comes in this order. Without breaking the chain, it comes in the order Brahmins first, Kshatriyas second, Vaishyas third, and Shudras the fourth. Dalit denotes a member of the caste, which is the lowest or the very inferior. So actually, the term Dalit comes much later. So it is used by Indian writers only after the post-colonial times, and it is in this sense that the term Dalit is used, which means the lowest or inferior. But the Dalit scholars place themselves as belonging to Panchamas, the fifth caste. They don't want to be placed along with the Chadurvarna. They say that they are much lower than that. And they belong to the Panchamas, the fifth caste, not even the fourth one, Shudras, but even much down. And that is the Panchamas, that is the fifth caste. So in that manner, you find the Dalit scholars recognizing the fact that they do not belong to the higher caste, but even the lowest of the lowest. It is in this sense that the term Dalit is used. When you take the formation of the 4 Varnas, you find the Brahmins, the higher caste, they are the learned men or the priests. The second group, that is the Kshatriyas, they are strong men, and as such, they are the warriors. And the third, Vaishyas, are the businessmen. The Shudras are the humble toilers of the 4 Varnas. So this caste system was observed in India for a long time, and people were so used to it that there is no breaking that barrier between the castes and becoming something that they are not. Like, for example, the businessmen becoming the warriors, or the warriors becoming the priests, and the priests or the warriors becoming the humble toilers, nothing doing. So the system was followed for a long, long time. The Panchamas stood outside the caste and even the social structure. The final ethnic division is the Panchamas. They are much less than even the Shudras, the untouchables, and as such they are described as impure. They can't be touched because they are not pure, so they are impure, and along with that, despicable. These are the terms that are used to describe the condition of the Dalit in the final ethnic division. The modern term for this group is the Dalit. So, the untouchables, the impure, the despicable group of people came to be called as the Dalit. Meena Kandasamy argues that it is a hegemonic practice of brute oppression sanctified by religious myths, because it is from the very top they have been oppressing this group, and they were not giving a chance for these people to come up in any way to the forefront, because it has already been designed by the religion, and that their role is that of the lowest in the hierarchy of religion and or the caste system, and as such this hegemonic practice of brute oppression, which was really sanctified by religious myths. People did not think that it is wrong to treat people in this manner, because the religion instructs them that they are to be treated only in this manner. This is what the religious myths tells them. And she continues, the gods are not only content with creating a society, but they create a wretched social order too. So this quotation is significant. Meena Kandasamy says the gods are not only content with creating a society, but they create a wretched social order too. We can see how wrong or right it is. And you can think about this quotation and continue with your thoughts with this. There is the mentioning of the caste system or speaking against the caste, and this comes from Buddhism, because even though it is considered to be a variation of Hinduism, Buddhists have moved far, far from the Hindu teachings, and they have their own way of life and their own way of treating people. And one of their key motives is ahimsa. And maybe because of that, they would like to treat their fellow human beings as people belonging to the human race and not as despicable or impure or things like that. So the Buddhist writings was one of the first attempt to speak against caste. Madara Chennaya mentioned this in his writing in the 11th century. Dohara Kakaya was another voice of the period. So these writings of the Buddhist really made it possible for people to think that this religion or the Dalits are not despicable, but there is no need for them to understand that they are not human beings, but actually they are part of the human race. So when you, since you are studying Malayalam, I'm sure that you must have gone through the poems of Kumarnashan, where you will find the Buddhist bhikshu telling the girl who had brought him water, that there is no caste and you are not an untouchable. Your water is as pure as anything. It is in that sense that the Buddhists started treating people who belong to the very low of the lowest of the caste system. And even in their writings also, you will find these people encouraging this group to come up to the forefront and started treating them as fellow human beings, because the Buddhists did not believe in caste system, and even the Buddhist monks were a class apart, and they went begging from one place to another, and as such they had to mingle with a lot of people, and nobody thought of restraining them or trying to stop their attempt to mingle with these people, and they continued with their preaching. And some of these Dalits turned to Buddhism because they felt that Buddhists treated them in the proper manner, as they are to be treated like a human being, and there is no impurity connected to them. So these Buddhist teachings in one way try to encourage other people also to treat Dalit in the proper manner like a human being. But it was not possible because Buddhism was only a very small part of the country, and as such it was not there, it did not spread in India because the caste system was very strong at that time. Again, in the 14th century, there is the origin of Bhakti poetry. You have heard of the Bhakti poets who sang of the of God's love, and they did not have any caste system. You will find the poems of these poets belonging to different castes and all praising the oneness of God and the oneness of treating human beings. The voice of the untouchables were not included in the mainstream literature. Along with that, their special culture and their art, it had its own beauty, but maybe because it did not have much literature connection or even maybe academic connections, they were not included in the mainstream. For example, Kuthu was not included as part of the culture because it lacked any literary merit. It is in this sense that you find that Kuthu was not included, since this is something that is created by the Dalit, and as such, whatever that they created lacked purity, and so it is not worthy to be included in the mainstream literature. So in all ways, these Dalit really suffered in the sense they were pushed to the margin, and nobody ever thought of bringing them to the mainstream. The term Dalit literature was first used in 1958, that is several years after independence struggle and India becoming independent. In 1958, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule used the term Dalit literature. By the efforts of Phule and Ambedkar, Dalit literature started progressing because they understood that learning is a medium by which they can really have independence. The country had gained independence, and there were a lot of social reformers coming to the forefront, and the reform of the Dalits should come from their own side, and this is possible only through literature. Maybe because of that, Jyotirao Phule took the effort. Ambedkar also took his effort in order to create Dalit literature and to encourage people to write in their own words. The little magazine was modeled on the Black Panther movement of North America. In North America, the black people, the black Americans, had already started the Black Panther movement, and following their footsteps, Phule and Ambedkar started creating a magazine called Little Magazine, and this encouraged Dalit writers to come up with their writing. And it was successful to a certain extent. And at the same time, a group of militant Dalits were included, and they started following the footsteps of Black Panther movement of North America. And then comes the creation of Dalit literature. So here you have the creation through the Little Magazine by the poems, short stories, and whatever that the Dalit could write, they were published in this Little Magazine, and Dalit literature was created as a result. Dalit also means ground crushed, broken down, and reduced to pieces in Marathi. Remember that the Dalit literature and Dalit movement started first in Marathi. And so the term Dalit was used by them, and the term means crushed, broken down, and reduced to pieces, which is not the right term to describe a proper human being. Whatever humanity that is in there had been ground crushed, broken down, and it was reduced to pieces. And this is exactly the term Dalit. Dalit Panther movement was created by writers like Namdev Dansar and Raja Dale in 1972, and used writing as a weapon. And this in turn created the flourishing of Dalit writings. So Dalit Panther movement, as we have already seen that there was this Black Panther movement, and following the footsteps, writers Namdev Dasal and Raja Dale thought that writing is the best weapon rather than be militant. And so writing was used by these people, and they encourage others also to start writing. It is not other caste people writing about the Dalit, but it is indeed the Dalits themselves using their emotions and feelings and creating literature of their own. From Marathi, this spread to languages like Hindi, Kannada, Telugu, and Tamil. Poems, short stories, and especially autobiographies were created and were published. Those started from Marathi, and the movement was named Dalit. The writers started creating their own feelings or their own writing about their own feelings, and it was published. The other languages started picking up from them, and they also started creating their own literature, or the Dalits in writing in Hindi, Kannada, Telugu, and Tamil. What did they write? They wrote poems. They also wrote short stories, and the autobiographies were especially remarkable because they have a lot to write about, and they wrote about the total injustice that they suffered throughout their life, and this was filled with a lot of emotion and with a lot of sensitivity, and the readers were encouraged to read through that, and there is much demand for that. Even the short stories and poems were something that they in which they put in a lot of their emotions and their life stories. So when you write about your life, it becomes all the more sincere, all the more touching, and the readers also feel that this is not a make believe story, it is indeed the truth. And as such, it started gaining momentum. So from Hindi, Kannada, Telugu, and Tamil, it started spreading to the other states also, and even in Malayalam also you will find short stories, poems, and autobiographies written by Dalit writers and speaking about their condition or the condition of the Dalit in general. And for this, they started using their language, and the language that was quite unfamiliar to the reading public, because they are so familiar with the academic language and not with the Dalit language, the spoken language of the Dalit people, which is as such used by the writers to write whatever that they had to, like the poems, short stories, and autobiographies. And so it started spreading in the southern India also, and in the North India, in Hindi and Marathi, it started flourishing. So the Dalit Panther movement was not a militant movement, but on the other hand, it was a writers' movement, and they thought that the best weapon is writing. And they were quite right also. If they had taken up arms, I don't think that they would have been much popular with the people. But they used writing as a weapon, and this was published. And when people started reading, there is a demand for more of that, and this in turn became much popular. People came to know about them, and mind you, this is after independence, when Gandhiji had almost abolished caste system and had spoken to people about treating each the other people as equals. But even then, there was much hesitance, and there was much force from the certain groups of people that it was just not to abolish caste system. Even though it was abolished to all outward senses, people still practiced caste system in a lot of areas in India, even after independence. This is why a movement like Dalit Panther movement was really necessary. So, with the language, they were able to reach masses quite well, and the people who are eager for education, and education was spreading throughout the land, and this in turn helped them to get to let their emotions show through literature, and the people to get to know their feelings. And this is why this Dalit literature became really popular immediately after 1972, because from there onwards, even though it started in 1957 and 58, you find that it took a lot of time to get for them to get organized, and as a result of it, they have been using the time in order to think about whatever is to be done to improve their condition and to be treated like the other human beings, and to have a place in society and not be put in the margins. This is the only demand that they had, and this they achieved using writing as a weapon. So when you think of Dalit literature, you have to think of the people who had been there earlier, who were crushed, broken down, and reduced to pieces by the oppression of the hegemonic forces, and as such, they suffered a lot. Yeah, even their education was in peril. Most of them were not educated, and even if they were educated, they were given education not along with the rest of the class, but maybe outside. So it is in that sense that the Dalit thought that writing should be taken as a weapon, and in a way, it started the beginning of the Dalit writings. And slowly, very slowly, Dalit writing started flourishing. So, when you think of Dalit writing, you have a lot to consider. The struggle that they have gone through, years of planning, and years of expansion, and years of remodeling their fighting technique, and finally coming up with the right weapon to reach the people. So it is not the social reformers who are responsible for this. It is the people who write and people who have access to education who are really remarkable in bringing about the Dalit movement, and along with that, Dalit literature. Nowadays, you find a lot of writings by the Dalit writers, each one better than the other. And we really enjoy that because, in a way, it is sincere and it touches your heart. And as such, it appeals to your emotions. And this is the best manner to reach people, and they have really been successful in doing that. So, starting with the post colonial and post independent and post modernist era, you have a lot of things coming up, like the protest literature, diasporic writing of colonial history, subaltern studies, and along with that, Dalit writing. You have already gone through the rest. Subaltern studies we have finished, and the next topic was Dalit writing. And this is only the first part of Dalit writing or Dalit literature. We have one more part in which more is said about Dalit literature. When Gayatri Spivak in the previous essay Subaltern speaks of women, she is speaking of Dalit women too, and also the oppressed people, and they are to be brought to the mainstream, and only then the subaltern will be complete, or the sense of the subaltern will be complete. And it is in this sense that Gayatri Spivak writes the essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? Even though we are dealing with Dalit literature, a lot of things that you learned from subaltern can be applied in Dalit literature too, or in Dalit studies. So it's not that you can forget whatever that you have studied earlier. You have to keep that also in mind when you come to this new topic. And I hope you have you will go through your textbook pages 110 and 111 after going through these slides. Thank you.